What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the ARC podcast. If you are a new listener, welcome to the Athletes Resilience Center podcast, where we talk about all things mental performance in sports. I am your host, Brandon Zachary, here with my co-host, Matt Owens. Matt, how we doing today?
Can't complain, brother. Another day, another dollar.
Another day, another dollar. Matt's season just ended up, so we were talking about different topics to go over and things that we thought were very vital to success for a lot of athletes. And one of the topics that we came across was the topic that we're going to talk about today, which is pre-performance routines in sports, kind of why they're important, how we want to implement them, and maybe some things that you wouldn't really think about with pre-performance routines and how we can kind of stray away from what's most important when creating a routine before a game. So this is something that we both see a lot in younger athletes, whether they're doing it effectively or not. And it's a conversation we both were excited to have and kind of get into. So to lead things off, I'm going to kick it over to Matt. And I wanted to ask from a coaching perspective, right? Why do you think creating a pre-performance routine in your eyes would be important? And then in your experience, what's the difference between coaching a kid who has implemented a pre-game, pre-performance routine that's successful versus one that kind of goes in there blind without any sort of agenda or game plan with a routine?
Yeah, I think it's important to create a routine. A, because it's pretty much there to help you prepare for the game, right? So we talked a little bit before this about basketball free throws is kind of the go-to when people think about like a routine, right? Especially when it comes to a routine in a performance. You're not going to shoot 100 free throws in a game. You're going to shoot a three-pointer, you're going to shoot a mid-range, you might be on the block, right? But when you get to that free throw line and you bounce the ball a couple times, you spin it, you take a deep breath, you kind of like refocus, recalibrate your mind, and then you shoot your shot. Right? It's super important to kind of have that routine in kind of anything that you do, just because it better prepares you for it, right? It can't be a crutch. It's not something that, if I don't do this, I'm not going to perform well. It's something that almost needs to be fluid and kind of changing as you go into different environments, right? And so, I've had kids in the past, I have kids now that have like their own routine. I've seen it, on other teams or my own team where, a guy doesn't have a routine and kind of the results are always going to vary, right? You might have a really good player that has no routine and he still gets good results, right? Could those results be better had he has a routine? Like probably, right? Because yet again, it just ties to that mental state, that mind frame and everything. And so kind of the differences that I've seen, throughout the course of this year is, guys that have a routine, they're a little bit more neutral, level-headed, kind of day to day, as, they know like, hey, if it rains before a game and maybe we don't hit on the field, we're going to have to hit in the cage. They can still go through a routine. It might not be like the routine they're usually doing every single day, but it's a routine where they're preparing themselves to play, they're getting in the right mental state. Whereas you have the guys that would be like, Coach, we're not hitting on the field today. Like, I need to hit on the field, in order to have a good day today, right? How can I perform if I'm not doing this? And like, that's the kid that doesn't have a routine, or he thinks his routine is something that absolutely needs to happen for him to play at a high level.
Yep. Yeah, no, I completely agree. And like you said, I think a pre-performance routine definitely works, and I think it's easily identifiable to see a player that has implemented one and how it helps them versus someone who just kind of goes in there and wings it and doesn't really have that preparation set in place. And I think there are a couple factors as to why the pre-performance routines do work. And I think there's a little bit of science behind it, and I think there's a little bit of like anecdotal evidence to support that, where at the core of this, right, like your brain reacts very good based off of like pattern recognition. So like we are creatures of habit, and the way that we operate and the easier things that we can kind of attach to and get our brains set around are things that we can repeat easily, right? So creating that pre-performance routine for us creates this like mental anchor, kind of like muscle memory, that allows us to understand like, hey, we've done this before, right? Our body knows, hey, we've gone through these motions before. So when we get in those states of anxiety, those states of nervousness, or our adrenaline super high and our body's going crazy, right? You're in a situation that you know you've consistently been practicing, you've consistently been able to, prep for, then we're ready to go and attack that, because there are a lot of situations in any sport, right? Like for the two of us, we played baseball. There are things within every sport that are highly unpredictable. In baseball, it's you play with 8 other guys on the field if you're the pitcher, right? Or if you're the hitter, you're hitting to 9 guys. You have no idea if you hit the ball, if you throw the ball, what's going to happen after you do that. The only thing you control is your swing, and for me, if I was pitching on the mound, your throw, right? So in an environment that you can't control most of the things that are going on, right? You are creating a controllable variable. You are creating something that you can control, which is before the game, which is your pre-performance preparation. And that leads to the in-game too, right? Like there is that level of pre-performance preparation where you're getting ready before the game. You're kind of getting your mind right. Whatever it is for Matt, it might be let's hit 2 balls the opposite way. Let's pull 2 balls. Let's hit 2 balls at the middle. Let's lay down 2 bunts, whatever it is to kind of get you mentally right and ready to go. Get those feels ready. For me, it might be I'm going to do my rocker drill when I'm warming up, and then I'm going to do my like leg lift and hold. I'm going to whatever it is, that helps you get ready for the game, because in the high pressure moments, you don't rise to the occasion typically. You fall to the level that your training has allowed you to fall to, right? So those pre-pitch, pre-performance, pre-game, whatever routines that you're going to implement are going to ultimately help you feel comfortable in those situations, right? Like if you're just willy-nilly going into it and you haven't practiced anything when you go into the game, also your first couple swings, your first couple throws are not going to be your best couple swings or throws, right? I mean, speaking from like that's why you throw a bullpen before a game. That's why you take BP before a game, right? Even before you take BP or throw on the mound, you should be doing something else that gets you ready for that game. Not even just physically, but mentally as well. Whether that's implementing some sort of breath work, whether that's implementing like some level of stretching that incorporates breath work, right? Like really trying to understand how your body's feeling and prepping yourself for that moment. And I'm sure you've seen it a ton with different guys and like how they implement it. But it's one less thing to worry about when you implement that routine. It's like, okay, this is the same thing I do every single time before a game, and now I'm ready to go.
100%. I mean, I think the breath work is a big thing. I think especially in games like baseball and everything, right? Throw a ball, kind of center yourself, take a breath, right? Before you go into that first pitch, do whatever routine you need to do. Deep breath, kind of like center yourself, kind of relax, kind of slow the heart rate a little bit, and then get ready to compete. And like I think the good thing about baseball, 5 years ago you could say it's a timeless game, like there's no clock. Now obviously there's a clock, but you can still kind of do a routine. You're just doing it within the confines of like that clock and everything. Whereas like a different game like basketball or something that's a little bit more constant motion, soccer or basketball, you might not be able to sit there and be like, I'm gonna take a deep breath and then I'm kind of go for it from here. But you can kind of find different pockets, in the game. But like you said, like everything that you do leading up to actually stepping on the court, stepping on the field, before you're between those lines, you can do things before that to get you ready for that moment and everything. And like I think the good thing about routines, like we talked about, is like the environment changes, the variable changes. Like you don't constantly want to be in situations of pressure because there's going to be times in the game where you're not underneath that pressure.
Yeah.
You do need to be able to maybe do a couple sprints, get your heart rate up, and then kind of feel a way to kind of slow yourself down. And that could be pregame, right? Because the first time you feel that in game, you need something to kind of bring you back and everything. That routine is supposed to be there to kind of help you through that and everything. So if you don't have a routine, you're kind of running around like a chicken with your head cut off because like you're going through a wave of emotions, a wave of different heart rates and everything, and like you're almost kind of rolling the dice and just saying like, okay, I feel good today, I'm gonna go out and just perform. I feel bad today, like I hope I kind of go out and perform, right? Like it can kind of help you feel the same level, almost in a way, the same level. You're not obviously going to feel neutral every single day. You're not always going to feel like positive every single
Of
day.
course.
But it helps you kind of get in that realm where depending on how I feel, if I'm sick, if I'm a little bit hurt, like I can kind of feel mentally ready and strong enough to kind of go out and give my best effort that I possibly can.
Yeah, and I think an interesting thing about pre-performance routines as well is you can also view it from the side of, they say like if you make your bed in the morning, right, you've already accomplished one thing for the day, like you're getting the ball rolling. Like a pre-performance routine can be the same exact thing. It's almost like, all right, like check, I already finished the first thing today. I already like excelled in this thing. Like that can get my ball rolling to get ready to go into the game, right? It's like the first thing that fires up and sets everything else up for success. I think if you've watched any young pitchers, I highly recommend. It's called the Slab Lab on like YouTube, and it's with Dallas Braden, and he interviews a lot of like the MLB's best arms and starters so far. I think they did Mason Miller too, but they go through each and every one of their kind of pre-performance routines, how they approach a bullpen, how they're doing it. And the common theme between all of them is how focused each one of them are, how precise each one of them are when implementing each and every single aspect of that, right? Like everyone's routine is not going to be the same, but it's the level of attention to what they are doing that is ultimately allowing them to succeed. Like the way that, Zach Gallen throws when they interviewed him is going to be much different than the way Mason Miller throws and gets ready, right? Like two completely different body types, two completely different mentalities, but when you look at how they approach what they're going after, how they get ready for their starts, how they get ready for their outings, it's very similar in how precise they are and how attentive to detail that they are and how important that is, right? Like again, it's like we said, it's you do the pre-performance routines to make the game easier for yourself. So if you're making sure that every single detail in your pre-performance routine is dialed into the extreme, that's just going to make everything in the game so much easier for you. Like it's just allowing you to be present on another level. If that makes sense. And hitters, it's the same way, right? Like you probably have different cage routines for different guys, and everyone's going to have a different approach. It's not like Aaron Judge is going to have a much different approach than like Luis Arias is, like two completely different hitters, two completely different body types. But I'm sure their attention to detail is just as important between the two of them. And that's what's going to help them excel when they get in the game. Because again, when you get in the game and you get tired, you get fatigued, you get stressed, you're going to fall to that level of expectation that you had when you weren't pregame. You're going to fall back to those moments when you were practicing and rely on muscle memory.
Yeah, I think I love the story of like Freddie Freeman's like pregame routine, talking about like backside like ground balls and everything, right?
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
if anyone's ever hit, it takes some type of focus, right? From the best player to the worst player, it takes some type of focus to be able to like see a ball coming in, kind of get on top of it, and kind of hit it the backside on the ground to a backside middle infielder, right? Like it takes some level of attention to detail. And like obviously Freddie Freeman's a guy that has, I don't know how many home runs he has, but he's probably close to 400 if he's not there already, right? So it's like, for him to have that kind of like have that feel to that be his pregame or his BP kind of like focus, it helps him in game where he's like, okay, like I can hold my angle a little bit better. I can deliver the barrel to the ball a little bit more accurately. Like I feel that I can do this. I know I can do this because I did this in my pregame. But also, if now I get a little bit underneath the ball or I get a little bit out in front of that baseball, I can elevate the baseball. I can put it in the gap. I can hit it over the fence and everything. So it's like his small little focus, his small little detail that he works on constantly every single day is a routine, but also helps him perform at a higher level because he's not necessarily going into the game to just hit backside ground balls. Like it's something that helps him do something else when he gets into the game and everything. And I think that's like the best way to kind of go about the routine. It helps you do something else, right? Like it sets you up for having success in what you do. I kind of want to lead that into a little bit of like the crutch aspect of it, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
where like routines can be a crutch because you think it's a routine, or it is a routine, but it's not rooted in the necessary things that a routine needs to be rooted in, right? Like, I've seen it this past year. You have a couple guys, they have a bad game. They're like, oh, I gotta go to the cage, and it's just like, why? Like, why do you need to go to the cage? Like, or you have a couple guys, like I used the example earlier about like the on-field BP as opposed to like the cage, right? You've played in regionals, you've played in conference tournaments. Like, you don't take BP on the field, so it's like if you need BP on the field to be successful, are you just going to go away in a conference tournament? Are you just going to go away in a regional? Or are you going to go away when like the actual stakes are now raised and everything, right? Like, you go to a conference tournament, you hit in the cage because someone's playing on the field before you. Like, you go to regional, you hit in the cage because someone's playing on the field before you, right? So you have to be able to, be fluid, change your routine. It can't be like, this is my routine. I need to do this to be able to perform on a high level, because when the road hits the rudder hits the road, whatever the saying is, like, how are you going to react? Like, how are you going to be able to get over that and go ahead and perform? So, like, you always need to have, I like those focused routines because there's something that is in there that helps you lock in, rather than like, I need to see a ball go over a fence, like, or I need to see it, land in a gap, right? I need to maybe focus on, like, maybe I go backside. I hit something backside, right? You can hit backside in the cage. You can hit backside on the field, right? You can't hit a home run in the cage,
Yep.
right? Like, you can
Yep.
hit a home run on the field. So it's like something that's fluid and that can help you perform it no matter what environment you go into and everything. And like, maybe you're playing high school ball and you're not hitting in the cage because that facility doesn't have a cage. Maybe you're not hitting on the field because they don't allow that in high school baseball. What can you do to then build out a routine to help you perform that day? Now you're almost thinking more, either feel like, or you're thinking a little bit more mentally, visualize, everything of that nature. So, whatever you choose to kind of make your routine, it needs to be something that can be fluid no matter what environment you kind of step into.
Yeah, I think that's extremely important, is the flexibility and adaptability aspect, because like you said, even at the younger levels, like when you're playing travel baseball and you're going away to tournaments, like same thing, right? You're not doing on-field BP with a team. You're not, like, a lot of pitchers, even it's like the bullpen's not ready because it's being used by the team before you. And then when they say, hey, game time starts in 30 minutes, it's like, well, my pre-performance routine is 45 minutes. How can I possibly do this? It's like, if you're that attached to it, that's gonna take away the significance of what the routine is, right? It's supposed to be something that gets you ready for the game. But if you're so attached to it and there's no level of adaptability, then that's actually taking away from your level of play when the game comes. It's like, oh man, it goes from a routine into a superstition. And that's when we get into trouble, right? And I think that's why you said something really good there when you're talking about hitting in the cages and talking about, okay, like, I can't hit a home run in a cage, but I can feel and see the way I need to hit the ball, right? Like, there is that level of feel where when you're warming up for a game, when you're throwing, when you're hitting, that's why I feel like it's more important to go based off of, like, how you feel when you're doing the routine, rather than like, I'm going to warm up and throw 10 times this way, and then I'm going to go into a rocker drill and rocker 10 times that way, like, and I need to get to the number 10, and then I need to get to the number 10. It's like, no, why don't you just get a feel? Once you feel the thing that you're reaching for, okay, great, that is what I'm targeting. Bang, I just got 3 good reps in at that feel that I wanted. Move to the next thing, right? Make it adaptable and make it quick. And again, when you get into the big leagues, when you get into any level of competitive baseball, football, basketball, whatever it is, right? When coach says, hey, we need you to be ready in 5 minutes, you're not going to say, well, actually, my routine takes me 10 minutes, so can you buy me an extra 5 minutes of time? It's like, no, like, your shot's coming. You need something that is quick, flexible, and adjustable, right? And there can be different levels of routines, right? Like I know in college when I was starting a game, I had a specific amount of time, right? I'm on campus. I'm able to go get my lunch that I want to get. I'm able to go to the locker room real early. I'm able to get to the field whenever I want to go warm up and do the things that I want to do. But in an away game, I'm not going to have that same time frame. You know, it's might be a little bit quicker. I got to get to the field. Okay, we're the away team, so now I'm going to be sitting more because I'm throwing before the game and then like throwing my bullpen. You got to plan it a specific way, right? There can be different levels of routines. And then it's an even different thing when you're coming out of the bullpen, right? It's like, okay, now I need to do this. And some games it's going to be like, hey, you need to get hot quick. And other games it's going to be like, hey, he's pitching real well right now. We're going to try to get you in like an inning or two. That's going to be the goal. And it's like, okay, well, your mindset cannot be the same for those experiences. Well, I shouldn't say that. You should have that neutral level of thinking where it's like, okay, got to start my routine and got to get ready to go. But it can't be stuck in the ways of there's one routine and there's only one way to do it for me, myself, and I, right? You can have the framework that overlaps amongst all those different routines, right? Like the core is all there, but you have to be more flexible and adaptable time wise. If you go somewhere, let's say a pitcher's example, you need to use plyo balls. They don't have anywhere you can throw the plyo balls, right? Well, you can't just say, "Well, I guess I'm not pitching today," right? It's like you gotta find a way to do it. Whether it's all right, I'm gonna go find somewhere else to throw it. I'm gonna throw it at the fence, and then maybe it's like, okay, maybe I can't use the plyo balls the way that I want today. You got to go find ways in order to be able to be adaptable and implement simple things in your routines. And I think the next best thing, not next best thing, but one of the better things that you can do that you also brought up was the visualization aspect, right? It's like there's a huge piece to that. And I think a big implementation of that is especially when going to away games and you're on the bus, right? You're sitting on the bus at all times up to 2, 3 hours, maybe. Like you can sit there. There's plenty of time for you to listen to any music you want to listen to, do whatever you want to do. You know, you can hang out with your teammates on the bus as well. But there needs to be dedicated time to being able to, okay, visualizing this is how I feel. This is how I want to feel. This is how I'm going to excel in the game, right? Going through your successes that you want to achieve in game, and you can do that before the game even starts. And that doesn't take anything. You don't need anything in order to prepare for that. All you need to do is sit down and be able to visualize yourself. And I think that was a really key aspect of implementing that is that visualization piece, that breath work piece. It's something that's quick and easy that you can implement just like that, and it's something that helps a ton.
Right. No, and I love the plyo care, example and
Yeah.
everything. I think this year it's funny. Like some places have like plyo boards now, right? Like
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
sure when we played, you're throwing into a fence, right? You're not throwing
Yeah,
into.
that was it. Yeah, yeah, that's it.
So like you'll see some guys like at our place we have like a plyo care board. Like so guys are throwing to a plyo care board. Then we'll go on the road and like some places don't have it, so they're throwing into like a chain link fence. In places where it's like you can't throw into a fence just because how it's set up. They have no plyo board. Like you're watching guys like throw the plyo ball just in air and just like walk, go pick it up,
Yep.
like throw it again. Like guys on football fields doing like rockers and they're like throwing the ball. It's just like you're used
Yeah.
to like seeing them throw it and it's like toof. It's like you see them
Yep.
throw it, it's just kind of like air. It's like
Yep.
oh
Yep.
man,
Yep.
we're in a different place today. But I think for me personally, like the breath work was something that was huge for me that it kind of helped in my senior year. I
Yeah.
usually tell people just kind of like how everything kind of progressed for me. And like my senior year, one of the biggest things I would do is not only like breathe, but I remember my pre at bat like routine walking up for the first time was I'd make the sign of the cross in the dirt or talking about changing environments like you play on turf sometimes you make the sign of the cross and you don't show up on turf like you do anything with your bat in the dirt, it's not showing up because you have no dirt, right? So it just became more about just like making the symbol, right? And then like we played and swung wood bats, so like I had my name on it. So I'd see Matt Owens every single time, hold it out in front of me, take a deep breath, kind of center myself, do whatever I needed to do once I got in the box, and it's like, okay, now I'm here. I kind of like established my presence like here, not for the other team or for anybody else, but for myself to like, okay, like I'm here. So it's like every single time I'm going up, like it's something that I would do because I know when it changed. I have to walk up to the plate, have to, step into the box. Like you can hold up your hand back in that time. So it's like, you hold up your hand, like you're going to get time, you do your thing, and then like you go from there. And it's something that like I knew every single at bat. It's something that has to happen for me to even step in, right? Not necessarily for me. It's just like that's just what happens, right? Like it just is. You walk up to the plate from the on deck circle. So it's like okay, that's going to be my routine because I'm gonna make that walk every single
Yep.
time. So it's just like all right, do
Yep.
it once, you're focused, and then you have your at bat, right? And I think something as simple as that is just like something that would like help me. Not necessarily having a BP routine at that at that point in time. Just kind of going in and just like whatever's on the sheet that day, like I'm going to go and like try to execute. So like that's kind of like what I'm doing, right? But it's like that was something for me to kind of help and just kind of center myself and like just be ready to compete. Like it's almost like this is the precursor. Now it's on. And just kind of go from there. But that would be something that kind of helped me. I always struggled, from a visualization like standpoint up until that year as well. I know my junior year, my dad used to get mad at me for taking the first pitch right all the time, and like I'm like I need to see what it looks like, and like when I got with like a mental coach going into my senior year, one of the things I talked about with them was like, hey, I always take the first pitch, or I always I struggle whenever I try to like have imagery of competition because it would
Yeah.
almost be
Yeah.
like so hectic, and like so they were like, all right, let's make it calm. So it's like one of the things I would do is pretty much just like my visualization. It's like okay, like I see the pitcher, like as I'm taking like my pre whatever. I never really swing on deck, just kind of more like visualize point of contact, visualize point of contact, and like the first pitch would go by, I'm like I watch it and it's like okay, kind of center yourself. All right, now you know what it looks like. So as you're like walking up there, I'm like, okay, I'd see that guy throwing the first pitch to me, and that's almost like my take. That's
Yeah.
me seeing that pitch he throws to me, right? Like,
Yeah.
and every single time it'd be a strike. So I'm like, all right, I step in. I'm like, okay, I already got one strike on me. It's time to swing. Like, so it'd be like trying to implement those things that kind of help me be a little bit more loose, be a little more free, kind of as you go out and like play and everything.
Yeah, I mean that's awesome. That's huge. Like that's a huge thing to implement from one year to another, like you come back a completely different hitter where, especially I think a pitcher's worst fear in a lot of times is that controlled aggression, right? Where you're going up and from pitch 1 you're like, "Okay, I'm ready to attack now." And going from year 1 where it's like, "Okay, let's get a strike over on this guy," and that's easy 0-1, and going into the next year where it's like no, like now I visualize that strike coming in and I'm ready, right? It's like I feel that I'm ready to attack where you know I, and you brought up another good point where you said like when I visualize it feels so hectic, and I felt the same way, right? Because what do most people visualize? It's the biggest moments, right?
Yeah,
It's like the bottom of the ninth inning and I'm out there on the mound and I struck out the batter to like end the inning. But how many times are we in those situations in the game, right? Like they definitely do come. And it is important to visualize in those scenarios, but right, how do you get to that scenario? It's hitter number one,
yeah.
right? Like that's how you get to the ninth inning. And for you, it's how do we get to come up in the bottom of the ninth and feel good and with the bases juiced and I'm ready to hit one out? Like, yeah, you have to go through the at bats before that, right? Like you have to be prepared for that moment previously. And I think that's a really good point because I felt the same way when I first tried implementing any sort of visualization. It's like, well, when I do visualize, it's like the most high energy adrenaline rush situation that you can possibly imagine. It's like, well, why don't you take a step back and imagine how do you feel pitch 1? How do you feel pitch 2? Okay, great. And then finally build into that moment where, okay, now when I get to that moment that's so high energy, high adrenaline, right? I feel that sense of power, not sense of the moment is bigger than me. You know what I mean? Where you feel the control over the situation rather than I feel the situation is controlling me. You know what I mean? Like it's a world's difference. But I thought that was really cool that you were able to implement that year over year. I didn't know that before. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it took 3 years to get to that point, but it's
Yeah,
I mean, like my
yeah,
visualization before would be like, first baseman's yelling runner, there's a runner running, like the guys are crashing through the base, the pitcher's throwing the fastball, he's grunting, and
yeah,
I'm in the box, I'm seeing all this happen, I'm like, oh my god, so I'm like,
yep.
I'm gonna hit a home run here. It's like, no, I probably would be taking that situation if the guy gets a good jump, right? So I'm like, oh shoot, like my head would be all just kind of like spinning because I'm like,
Spinning.
what does it feel like? What does it look like? And like it would feel when that's kind of like what you're thinking about. It's like you kind of almost abandon the visualization aspect because like now it's like, oh my god, like I feel more pressure now visualizing something that might not even be there for me right now. There might be no runners on base, but like every single time I'm like visualizing, it's raising my heart rate, and like now I'm not calm as I'm like walking up. So it's like you're trying to find something that's like calm, centering, like something that's a little like in my visualization. There's no result. Like there's a pitch being thrown. I don't know if it's a strike or it's a ball. Like maybe it's a strike, and like now I have my strike on me for that, and now I'm ready to kind of go and hit. But it's like there's no one on base. There's no one moving. It's just pitcher, you, and like you kind of go from there and everything. So like, you gotta almost find what kind of brings you together. I would say, to a guy as they're kind of like building out your routine and everything when it comes to that visualization aspect. Because obviously, you might be seeing demons. Like I was seeing demons. Like
Yeah, 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 yeah.
there's too much going on. So finding something that kind of is just like a straight line bring me back. All right, now we're ready to go and everything.
Thank you for listening to the ARC podcast. This episode is sponsored by the Philly Pretzel Factory of Marlton, located on North Maple Ave in Marlton, New Jersey.
Tell them Matt and Brandon sent you. We appreciate all your support. Thank you for listening, and back to the podcast.
I think a really important aspect of that too is pairing breath work with the visualization, and especially in those high pressured moments, right? Because in those situations, right, you're saying you can feel the stress. You're not even in it actually. You're just visualizing it. And I'm sure your heart rate's up. You feel it, right? And now, if we're able to implement a level of breath work where we can breathe through it, you can take deep breaths in through your nose, breathe out your mouth. You can feel the negative energy you're breathing in and then letting the negative energy out, right? You're pairing that with those high energy, high level moments. When you get in that moment, even though you may never have been there before, you have visualized it and you have breathed through it, right? Like you literally experienced that in your head and was able to implement breath work to allow you to, okay, this is where I level myself, I stay neutral and calm myself down. So when you're in that moment, I can take this on. I've been in this moment before, right? And it sounds crazy, but it's like I had like nothing that's going to happen out here I haven't already imagined in my head, right? Like I'm going to go out and accomplish this. And I think that's really really important. Like implementing that aspect. The breath work paired with the visualization is super super important.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to big moments, like it's ironic. Like as you grow older, like some people grow into like okay, like I can step into a pressure moment. I can just go ahead and like be successful. But I think every kid, as you kind of grow up playing sports, no matter what sport it is, you have that like the backyard like moment, right? Whereas like
Yeah.
okay, it's bases loaded, it's Game 7 of the World Series, and it's like you hit a walk off if you're playing like wiffle ball with your boys, or like maybe you're just throwing a ball and hitting it with a bat to yourself. But it's like you put yourself in that moment, and as you get older and older and older, it's like we kind of lose that visualization of like success. It's almost like because we're not there yet, like we're successful when it comes to that moment, and then once we're there for the first time, it's like you almost like lose it that
Yeah.
you wanted that as a kid, like you wanted to be in that spot. Like, hitting the game-winning shot in the NBA Finals, right? Throwing a Hail
Yeah.
Mary touchdown for a win. Like everyone's kind of seen and kind of put themselves in those moments of like success, but it's like as we get older, I guess the stakes get a little bit higher, or I guess mature in like the game that you're playing. You kind of lose that moment. You kind of lose touch that it's like, I have seen myself do this. It was just for the New York Yankees, but I'm playing for, Rosa International Middle School.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What's the difference? Like, if it's bases loaded and the seventh inning at Rosa, like it's probably less stakes than bases loaded and it's the ninth inning of the World Series, right? So it's like you see yourself in such a higher pressure situation that it's like when you get into something that's a little bit less high stakes, you're kind of crumbling underneath it, or you're not ready for that moment. So it's like, I don't know where we kind of lose this as like a people, like where it turns that backyard moment then becomes in front of us, and we feel so pressured that it's like we can't work ourselves through it, or we can't see ourselves working ourselves through it and everything. It's crazy just kind of how it works and everything.
Yeah. Shout out Rosa Middle School, man. Carusi Mustangs walked off on you guys when I was in middle school. Single through the right side. I'll never forget it. That probably was my last hit I've ever had. But um, no, I think that was also an important aspect, right? Like you said, like it's either for your middle school or for the New York Yankees, right? You've been there, you've done that before. Where there's other parts of your life where you've done that, other aspects, right? Like even though your identity might not be tied to, hey, like I'm the one that should be up in these pressured situations, right? It's like, well, what else have you gone through in your life that has helped you prepare for this moment, right? Like, it doesn't even just have to apply to sports. Like, it could be, hey, like I was tabbed with like a present your example from, months ago that we talked about, right? I was tabbed with going up and presenting at ABCA. It was last minute and I had to go up and it was a high pressure situation. And what did I do? I went up there and I succeeded, right? I excelled. Like there's other moments in your life that you can like attribute to that, whether it's school, right? It's like I had a high stress level presentation I had to present at in, you know, school, right? For a project. I breathed through it, I got through it, and I killed it. I excelled, right? That power that's within you that you got in that moment doesn't just stay in the thing that you're doing, right? It can transform into other aspects of your life. And whether that's something you implement in school, in your personal life, in your work life, like that can translate into your athletic life and vice versa, right? Even if you're someone who was an athlete going into the professional sphere, going into something else, right? Like, hey, I was successful in high pressured situations in my athletic career. When I get into my work life, when I get into my personal life, that is who I am identity wise, not just in sports, but all over, right? It's like there are other things that you have excelled in that can kind of help you, like, okay, hey, how did I excel there? Like, what did I do right? How did I prepare for that moment to be able to excel, right? There's like certain things you can kind of tweak and implement, whatever that helps. And for some people, like this, going back to another episode, could be, hey, like in my pre-performance routine, I need that totem or that switch to my alter ego, right? Like I need to channel it and get ready. That could be a part of it, right? Like in that moment, it's like, okay, here I am. I'm Brandon off the field, bang, snap it. Now I'm ready to go. I'm my alter ego. I'm on the field again. I'm ready to go. Like there's different things you can implement that help that don't necessarily just have to relate to your past experiences in your current sport or profession.
You know what? I think you brought up a good little example there. You talked about your pre-performance and then kind of kicking into alter ego, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead, talk to us a little bit about the Broad Street Run, how we kind
Oh
of flipped the
boy.
switch right there.
Oh boy. Yeah, yeah, sure. Um yeah, I ran in the Broad Street Run and I am definitely not a runner, which was actually something that I told myself I was going to stop saying because I felt like that was a big time limiting belief and almost like a barrier or a crutch, right? Where it's like, well, if I didn't perform the way I wanted to, I could just say, well, I'm not a runner, right? Like, and I was talking with Drew, who we've had on the podcast, Drew Hopper, and we went over like that that self talk, that self doubt of I'm not a runner, I'm not a runner, I'm not a runner, where I started to approach it as this is just a thing that I do. It's just another thing that I do. Every time I would wake up to run and train, it would just be, this is what I do. There's no arguing with myself. There's no battle. There's no, man, I'm not a runner. Man, I'm sore. It's wake up, do the training, and then go. And then when it came to Broad Street Run Day, the alter ego, like you said, was I switched it to the way that I kind of thought about what a start day would be like when I played, right? It's like, okay, you wake up, you have a routine where it was like, okay, I have a couple stretches I want to do. I'm going to hydrate. I'm going to get a little caffeine in me. I'm going to eat a little bit, and then I'm ready to go, right? Locked in. Um, that was a big switch for me in the beginning of my training versus the end of my training was the visualization and the self talk and self doubt. Because in the beginning, it was like, okay, we'll see how this goes. I'm not a runner, but I'm doing this because I want to push myself and I want to prove to myself that I can do this thing, right? And then as I kept going along, it was that battle with yourself where now it was like, okay, I'm doing this thing. And the verbiage of I'm not a runner, right? Now it's like, okay, I'm not a runner. Wait, how many days a week did you run? 4 days this week. Okay. Sounds like you are a runner, right? Like, just because you're not a runner in your head doesn't mean you're not running, right? Like, you could say, I'm not clutch in high pressure situations. It's like, is there evidence behind that? Or are you just saying that because that's how you feel, right? There's those moments where it's like, okay, maybe I am clutch in high pressure situations. Maybe I can do these things. It is a lot of that self talk and self belief. But yes, a lot of my prep for that run was okay, I have a routine that I can implement. I did the same stretching routine that I did before I ran any of my longer training runs. I hydrated the same. I woke up, I had the same kind of thought process. And again, mentally and visually, I was like, okay, I'm ready for this. I have been training for this. I have gone through this moment in my head now so many times that now all I have to do is just show up and I'm ready to perform and excel. And luckily for me, I hit the time that I was kind of shooting for within where I wanted to get to. So it ended up being good. I don't know if I'm gonna run anymore, but it was something that was good that I pushed myself and I felt proud of the performance after I was able to go and do it. Yeah, no, I think it definitely for anyone who has not done it or is thinking about doing it, I do recommend trying it out. It's a real cool way. The city of Philadelphia gathers in a really cool way, and everyone's cheering for you, and it's really cool. But yeah, no, I definitely think for me, right, like you said, like we talked about in other avenues of your life, like I can take this into my professional life. I can take this in any other athletic areas that I want to get into, right? Because at a certain point, right, I kept telling myself that I wasn't a runner until finally one day I said, you know what, I'm doing this thing. I am running. That's what's happening. And now I ran in a race that I didn't think I would ever run in, and it's cool to look back and see, and that gives me confidence to be able to do other things in my life that maybe I'm scared to take the leap in and do. It kind of gives you that level of confidence that you're able to achieve things that you never thought you might have been able to achieve.
And honestly, too, it's like, when you do something so much, like, let's say someone that doesn't know you, they hear about what you're doing, like, the first question they would ask, like, oh, you run 4 times a day. I mean, 4 times in a week, right? Like,
Yeah.
you just did a Broad Street run. Like, they hear about that, they're like, oh, you're a runner, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what they
Yep.
would associate with you,
Yep.
right? So it's like, it's the same thing. Like, if you're like, nah, I'm not a runner, nah, I'm not a runner, and then you do everything that a runner does, and someone else were to stumble upon
Yep.
Brandon Zachary
Yep.
and they ask,
Yes.
what is it that you do? You're like, I run 4 times a week, and I just ran, Broad Street running. Like, you're a runner, right? Like,
Yes.
it's almost like if you ask yourself that question, like, what would someone else say about me? Like, that's almost how you can also kind of get into that. And like you said, it carries over into your professional life, right? You negotiate 5 contracts, and you get your client the best deal possible. Someone's gonna be like, oh wow, you close deals, like,
Yeah.
you're the deal closer, right? And you
Yep.
can be like, nah, I've only done 5. Or you can be like, oh yeah, I guess I kind of am, right?
Yeah, and I think I also have to give a big shout out to my wife Bridget because there were nights when I had a long run the next morning and I would be like, oh, I have this long run. And this was back when I was like, I was in that belief of I'm not a runner. Like, this is not fun. And I would say, like, oh, I got to wake up and run tomorrow. And her advice at times was just stop complaining about it. Just wake up and do it. That's it. That's all it was. It was that simple. It was like, just wake up and do it. And I was like, you're right. And then from then on out, like, both of us would just talk about it where I'm just viewing it as like a thing that I do. It's not anything other than that. It's like, okay, I am waking up and running. That's it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And there's no level of I'm excited about it. There's no level of I'm disappointed about it. It's I'm up and I'm up because I'm going to run and that's the way it's going to be. And I feel like that. So big shout out to Bridge for helping me on that because that was a good mindset shift as well.
So what? Let's kind of we're talking about routines and everything, right?
Yeah.
So something that you hadn't done on a consistent basis, right? Obviously, like running, right?
Yes.
Now, granted, you had an event that you're going to compete in, right? And so everything kind of leads up to that. So, what would be the advice that you would give, or how could you help someone that wants to get into something they haven't done yet? What would be a routine, maybe that you had, or maybe that if you did this again in some other new endeavor, something that you would implement? How would you help that person?
Yeah, I think for me, I'd split it into two separate buckets of how I'd want to kind of make a pre-performance routine. I would make one aspect the physical side of it, and the second aspect the mental side of it. And I think it all starts from the moment that you wake up in the morning, right? And I think DC, again, I've mentioned this probably multiple times on this podcast, but he kind of had the ultimate way to wake up, right? It's when I have my breakfast and I have my coffee, no one's going to beat me. And two things in that statement that we probably didn't even acknowledge in the moment that looking back now we are is that is actually flexible and adaptable because he didn't say if I have my eggs from this diner and my Dunkin' Donuts right? There was no specific like if
Right.
I have this and this, right? Like, and in college, even one of my I would call it was a superstition. Superstition was I would have Taco Bell 2 nights before every single one of my starts, and that was the thing, right? And that was just the way it was, and I did that with Joe Cirillo. Shout out Joe Beast. That was like something that we did every single week, and I think the implementation from DC, right? Like it doesn't have to be breakfast and coffee. It could be I take a morning walk. It could be making your bed. Something in the morning that does get the ball rolling, I think is super important, right? So that's part of the mental side to begin the day. Physically, I think you need to make sure that you're taking care of yourself nutritionally, and everyone has different things that make them feel good, right? Like for me, I was a weirdo with the run. I needed to train and run almost fasted, right? Like I had like a little bit of food before I ran on the Broad Street run, but like for the most part, I train better when I am fasted. Even lifting, anything like that, I just train better fasted. I feel like I perform better some level of light amount of food in me. So everyone nutritionally fit you can figure it out however you feel best with your body, right? Then physically now we get to before the game, right? I think there does need to be a core selection of things, and I can talk about this, let's say, right? The Broad Street run, for example, right? I had like a band that I would stretch and use for my legs, and I would do a certain number of I wouldn't count it, but it would go based on feels with the stretches that I was doing, right? Once I felt a certain way, I felt loose, I felt ready to go, I was able to move on to the next step of that routine, right? Now, if we're talking about a starter, let's say, right? Maybe it's I start with my bands, right? Same thing. I'm going to stretch until I feel what I need to feel, till I feel good. I'm going to move into my plyo balls next. I'm going to do the exercises I want until I feel good, right? It's not about hitting a number because what if you get to 10 and you don't feel good, right? What if you did 10 reps wrong, right? Like it's about attention to detail. I would take 3 very meticulous good reps over 10 reps you're just going through the motions, right? Like get the feel that you want to get, and then get out of that exercise, right? Then go and move on to the next thing. Then it's warming up and going and throwing, right? It's things that are all adaptable but true to you. Everyone's routine is going to be much different physically, right? And mentally. It's all going to be different. But like for me, I really enjoyed long tossing. But again, I wasn't counting the number of throws that I was throwing when I was long tossing, right? It wasn't like I'm going to throw 10 from this distance, 10 from this distance until you get, super far back and then I'm going to get another 10, right? It was all feel based. It was all okay. I feel good here, feel good here. Okay. At my max distance, I feel loose. Great. Now I can make my way in and I'm ready to go. And when I got into the Frontier League, it switched a little bit, right? Because when you're coming out of the bullpen, I can't long toss right before, right? You can't long toss at any point besides before the game. So you have to, I had the same band routine, right? Great. Had the same plyo ball routine. Great. Now, that long toss routine I can't implement exactly, but I can get some throws behind the mound and try to get the same feel that I would have when I long toss, right? And just because I wasn't able to long toss doesn't mean that all of a sudden all my abilities go away. It's Space Jam. I touch the ball, and now all the Monstars have my powers, right? It's nothing like that. It's okay. I can't long toss, but everything else that I can implement, boom, I'm ready to go. I'm able to implement that, right? And again, I think the main focus with that routine and finding it for yourself is going to be based on feel, not based on number of reps, right? And I'm not saying that goes for any time you train. I'm saying this is pre-game routine, right? Like you shouldn't be focusing on, okay, I need to get to this number of reps because this is going to get me better. It's I am going to get to this level of feel so I am prepared to perform in the game, right? I think that's a very big disconnect as well. And then mentally, I think an example of a really good routine that you can implement mentally is I do think a visualization paired with breath work, and then I think a whole separate breath work routine. Some guys will sit out in the grass, sit out in the turf, whatever it is, and go through breath work. There's box breathing, which I think is very helpful. There's, different types. There's the Wim Hof method for breathing. Like there's different implementations of breath work that you can go through. You can start as complex or as simple as you'd like, but I do think there's a level of okay, I feel this level of stress, and you're thinking about okay, I'm breathing in and letting the stress come out, right? It's focusing on that breath work. So then when you get in those moments like we described before, you can breathe through it. You've been in that moment and now you know how to get out of that level of, high energy, that level of anxiety, that level of fear in the moment. You can breathe through it and get through it. And I think the visualization paired with that breath work is really important. You can do that on the bus. You can do that when you get off before you do anything. You can do that right before you enter your performance. Like it depends on, the schedule of the way you're doing things, but I think as long as you have that level of physical routine and that mental routine, I think you're ready to go and you're ready to attack the day. Some guys, they'll wake up in the morning the day of the game and they write down everything that they need to do. It's kind of whatever is most comfortable for you, right? Like I think where we've talked about where you get into trouble with routines is if you try to follow everything by exactly the way that you did it the last time.
Right.
That's when you're going to get into trouble, and that's when it becomes a superstition. And that's when things, when things hit the fan, you don't know how to react because you didn't go through the things that you think make you the best that you could possibly be. Again, the routines just help you get ready for the game. That's not who you are as an athlete. Your routine, your prep for the game, your prep for the game is what defines you, not the routine that you implement before the game. And I think the other piece of advice is you should implement all of these in practice. Because again, we've talked about this like with the alter ego effect. You can't think, all right, I'm going to try this before the game and see how it works, right? It's something that you need to constantly be practicing. And as you get older, as you go through your career, we talked about this with Smeltzer on his, like you take and pull things from when you were in high school, and then you're like, okay, I actually don't need that anymore. You make your routine as efficient as possible. You have to be adaptable and open-minded to other things that might, be beneficial or be helpful.
No, I agree, and I think you kind of nailed two things. Like, ultimately, like your routine needs to be simple. Like, if it's going to be efficient, it probably needs to be simple, right? Simple is repeatable, and as the environment changes, you can repeat it. Like, it's simple, all right. Whereas like complex things, as the environment changes, you have to take away, or you might need to add certain things. Like, yeah, it's fluid, but it's too much. It's just too much, right? And it should be something that it gets you ready to do something else, right? Like it prepares you for performance. So it's like it needs to be short, sweet, to the point, and you're good to go, right? Like it's too long, and the environment changes, and you don't have the time to do it. It becomes a crutch, right? Like can't be a crutch, can't be a superstition. Like if you touch the white line at a baseball field, it's not the end of the world. I can guarantee you that. Like you're not going to get out of the fastball. If you throw 90, you're not going to all of a sudden throw 81 because your right foot touched the white line. Like,
Yeah.
Also, don't be the guy that gets on other people for breaking your superstition. Don't
Yep.
set
Yep.
superstitions for a group of people, right? Like,
Yep.
be
Yep.
be to the point, right? Be focused on your task for that day. Like, I assure you, stepping on the white line does not hurt. I've done it before, right? So,
Yeah. Yep.
I think at the end of the day, it's just like it needs to be something that's simple, short, sweet, to the point, prepares you for performance, and and you'll be all right. And I think, ultimately, kind of, I guess I'm doing a little recap here, but like the breath work, the visualization, right? It all ties into it. It helps you perform. It helps you prepare to perform, right? It's necessary things to compete at like the highest level, right? And God bless you if you don't do any of that stuff and you're able to go in, day out, and compete, perform at a high level. Those are guys that are different, right? He's him. He's different. He's different from everybody else, right? So yeah, I think what we touched upon tonight. It's just ultimately make it easy on yourself. Like don't make it hard. If you're doing visualization and like my example, there's a lot going on. Like figure out a way where you can visualize something that's simple, that's calm, right? Like don't put yourself in position to perform with just a hectic schedule of preparation leading up to it.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think another aspect, like the keep it simple portion, I think is keep it simple and repeatable. That's two of the biggest things because if you can't repeat at least the core aspects of your routine, then it's not a routine. You're doing something different every time. And simplifying it makes it more adjustable and more flexible, which ultimately helps you go from league to league, able to implement that without any issues or any hiccups. I think
Focused.
one thing we forgot to kind of tie in with this, which we talked about with the alter ego effect as well, is we talked about with the alter ego effect like a level, like a totem, where it's like I put on my jersey and now I'm a different person. I put on my hat, now I'm a different person, right? That's the alter ego effect side. Where with a pre pitch, pre snap, pre jump shot, like whatever it is, there's different levels of like not a totem, but a trigger that you can get to where you want to be, right? Like there's the LeBron James before the game, right? He does like the chalk, right? It's like he throws the chalk up. It's like, okay, I'm ready. The Mad Hungarian, I know he was crazy, but like the Mad Hungarian on the mound, right? He'd be behind the mound and he'd talk to himself. I'm sure not great things, but he would talk to himself and then he'd punch his glove, turn around and be ready to go, right? It's like, okay, like now I'm in this, now I'm ready to compete. There is that level of whatever it is, whether you're in the box, like spitting on your hands and clapping, whether you're on the mound, right? Taking your hat off, like tucking it back, whatever it is, whether it's anything that you need, right? Like you said, drawing a cross, whatever it is, that level of okay, like I'm repeating the same thing I do every single time because this helps me get in the moment and now I know, okay, my body is now being triggered to say, okay, now do the thing that you always do, right? Like it's bringing it back to its most basic form. It's triggering, okay, this is what I do before every time I get in the box. Now I'm ready to go. This is what I do before every time I get on the mound. Now I'm ready to go. It's something easy, something quick, a simple trigger. I remember Evan Longoria a while ago would look at his bat, then look at the left
Foul
field
pole.
foul pole because he said it never moved. It was always there, right?
Yep.
Like something simple as that, right? Could be looking at your cleat, could be putting the bat down on the plate, whatever it is. Something easy to implement that creates that trigger for yourself where it's like, all right, now I'm ready to go. I do this. This is my body's ready for this.
Nah, love that. The Evan Longoria thing. I think a lot of us, you hear that growing up and everything, but it's like, hey,
Yes.
foul pole does not move. Whatever field you show up at, I hope there's a left foul pole. If you're in travel ball, it might be a little different. But if you're in high
Yeah,
school,
yeah.
the pros, like that left foul pole will be there, right? The basketball players grabbing the ball, spinning it around in your hands a couple times, just getting that feel. This is how the ball feels today. Okay, cool. Like no one's gonna feel the ball and be like, yo, what the heck? Like,
Yep.
and if they switch it out, they're gonna do the same thing. They're gonna feel it again, right? Like you're gonna be able to like it's the variable that's there every single time. Like that's something that helps make that routine simple, efficient, effective, and repeatable. Like it's going to be there every single time.
Definitely. No, and yeah, I think ultimately this was an awesome conversation about building a routine, and I hope people listening are able to implement any part of this. I think we went over a lot of key aspects of this, both the mental and physical side. And I think this is a topic that's extremely important for athletes at any level and even guys who are post athletics, right? Like, I think any of these can be implemented in any aspect of your life. I think any sort of routine that kind of locks you in and gets you set for any sort of performance that you're ready for, I think is important. And yeah, so thank you for your expertise and advice on this, Matt, because I know you've seen a lot of guys go through this different stuff, and obviously your personal examples. So definitely some cool conversations about this, and I appreciate getting through this with you.
Yeah, brother.
Awesome. All right, cool. All right, thank you guys for listening. I appreciate everyone tuning in, and till next time, thanks everybody.